Ever since the announcement of Andor back in November 2017, I remember being part of the small minority that was excited for it despite all of the hate the show was getting because no one asked for it, and who cares about Andor? At least these were the main complaints that the haters were putting out at the time. And to be fair, yeah, no one did ask for a series about Andor. But many of us have wanted a serious, gritty, and mature live-action look of the dark times that Obi-Wan remarks in A New Hope. And seeing that we'd get a show exactly about this, featuring one of the lead actors plus the director and production team of Rogue One, which today is seen as possibly being the best Star Wars Disney movie, then I wondered how anyone could really be against this show. At least I did for the past 5 years, because since premiering this fall, Andor has surprised, captured the hearts of many fans, and even turned many of those previous haters into lovers of the show, which honestly is great to see. Now, Andor is unlike any other Star Wars Disney series, and I think that's what really sets it apart and shows that Star Wars content specifically targeted for adults should work and can be successful. That said, it isn't perfect, and had it not been for the delay when we were originally supposed to get Andor back in August instead of September, then I think we would have been hearing a lot less praise for it, let's just say that. This is because, due to the delay, Disney announced that Andor would now premiere with 3 episodes instead of the usual 1 or 2. And this here is the game changer. While the decision to delay the show angered many fans at first, I think today they can all look back and be thankful about it. This is because the first 2 episodes are mainly set up in a 3-episode arc. We get to see Cassian Andor long before he's in the rebellion, both as an adult and a kid through various flashbacks, all without the need for a bacta tank, of course. However, it's not Andor himself who pulls us in, as we all know him quite well already due to Rogue One, but rather more so the characters around him. His adoptive mother Marva, her personal droid B, Andor's friends Bix and Brasso, and especially the mysterious Luthen Rael, Cassian's first contact with the rebellion. Episodes 1 to 2 shows us how Cassian lives his life as a scrapper, a part-time thief, his friends and family, but also unravels, for better or for worse, some new information previously unknown about his background, all while he attempts to search for his long-lost younger sister. And that's really about it for the first 2 episodes. Like I said, it's a setup, but with an incredibly slow pace, which, mind you, is worth it in the end. But nothing really happens until episode 3 for the most part. And had I not been a Star Wars fan and only seen episode 1, then odds are likely I probably wouldn't have continued to episode 2. Heck, I'm a Star Wars fan and was excited for Andor, and even then I found myself bored at some moments due to the pacing. But fortunately, it all comes to a satisfying climax in episode 3, and I'm sure that's when this series really clicked with so many people. Personally, I would have squeezed episodes 1 to 3 all into one massive long premiere episode, as it really felt like a mini movie, and not something that you can watch one episode of each week and be happy with it. Kind of like what The Bad Batch did with their long premiere episode, and I think that worked great for that series, at least for an entry point. Now, some parts of the Andor premiere that I really loved was how right from the very beginning, the show tells you, hey, this isn't for kids, okay? As we're shown Cassian visiting a seedy brothel in search of his sister that he believes is being trafficked. which I don't have to tell you is a serious issue that happens in the real world. Yet I never thought we'd see something like this in a Disney Star Wars show of all places. But of course, aside from the dark tone, the high quality set design, the cinematography, and acting, also comes the good writing, something that we've seriously been lacking in a Star Wars show since The Mandalorian. But even then, the writing in Andor feels like it's got even more depth. And most importantly, it doesn't treat you like an idiot like some of the other shows do. In addition, I actually loved how the Empire is only mentioned in the first 3 episodes, where instead we see the Corpo security doing their dirty work for them, and I was a big fan of this. Not only bringing something like the corporate administration from the original Star Wars pen and paper RPG into canon, but not having to rely and overuse the Empire too much like other shows, which was a breath of fresh air. I mean, even the main antagonist of the first 3 episode arc, Cyril Karn, doesn't feel like a so-called baddie here. Instead, he's a socially awkward yet determined guy who cares about his profession and only wants to seek justice. And seeing others around him not caring as much only really pushes him further. And had I watched the 3 episodes from his point of view only, then I totally would be rooting for him because, well, yeah, all he really wants to do is capture what he believes to be a dangerous murdering criminal, and what's really wrong with that? Of course, context is needed and he doesn't really have that, so you can't really blame him too much. Now, episode 4 is when things start to really get interesting. We end one arc and begin another, this time replacing the Corpo as the baddies with the Empire instead. But even then, this one is another setup episode, but unlike before, the pace now is much better, and I think us having gotten to know the characters around Cassian helps a lot too. Cassian embarks on his first mission against the Empire as a mercenary, while we learn more about Luthen's double life as an antique dealer, which is pretty cool as his antique shop is filled with numerous goodies, especially that one set of armor that got everyone excited, which is none other than the Sith Stalker armor worn by Starkiller in the Force Unleashed 2 video game. And no, this doesn't mean that Starkiller is canon or anything like that now, but it's a neat little Easter egg showing us that yes, Sith once wore armor like this in canon. Plus the whole interaction that Luthen has with Mon Mothma and moving money for the rebellion in secret is quite interesting too, as that's a topic not many people really think about when it comes to the Rebel Alliance. Unfortunately, like I said before, despite all of the great things about Andor, the show does have some flaws too. Aside from the very bad pacing in the first couple episodes, I also personally really dislike the over-reliance on the British accent heard throughout. Yeah, I know Andor is filmed in the UK and all, but Tony Gilroy does realize that British actors can actually, act, and use a different accent than their normal British one. And that's just it. There's only like 5 people in the entire series so far with a non-British accent that speak basic, aka English, with 4 of the 5 of them being important to major characters, while everyone else and their mother has a British accent. It's almost like the show is trying to tell us that, hey, see this non-British person? Well, keep an eye on them because they're important to the story in some way. Which is weird because the British accent in Star Wars lore has always primarily been used by, well, the bad guys like the Empire, or the upper elite and generally well-off people, like for example Coruscant. Yet here we see nothing but poor people speak it, and not only on 1 but 3 planets so far, which is just insane to me. For anyone watching Andor as their first Star Wars content ever, they would think that everyone in the galaxy is a Brit, with the exception of like 5 or so people. Then there's also the whole what looks to be the retconning of Cassian no longer being a separatist in his youth, which so far I'm not crazy about, as usual with most retcons, but I'm gonna wait and see how they play this out before putting this down as a negative, as who knows, the payoff might be done well. Either way, aside from my gripes of Andor, I really did enjoy the 4 episodes that I've seen thus far, and I especially like their plan to do mini arc-like stories for every 3 episodes in the season. It's new, not something that we've seen done before, and so far they're doing a brilliant job with it. I truly can't wait to see how this series will be once Cassian does end up officially joining the rebellion, and then the real heavy-stake missions against the Empire will start to show up. Until then, I'm gonna put my trust in the Gilroy brothers in delivering an amazing, mature, and dark Star Wars cinematic experience that many of us have always wanted to see.